So what's the word?
Sit till we get orders to deploy. Kill us some bad guys. Suck it up, Marine.
There's no bad guys up there, Folsom. Keep telling you, this is strictly humanitarian crisis. Ebola or some such shit. Tell him, Alcatraz.
Hi there, my name is Darfridge, and this is my review for Crysis 2. I don't really remember the original Crysis very well. All I really remember is the final boss fight glitching on me and forcing a restart, and a vague feeling of disappointment. So, on to Crysis 2. Has 4 years been long enough for Crytek to improve their game any? My first impression was no, it hasn't. It took me quite a while to get into Crysis 2. I can't quite put my finger on why exactly. It might be simply down to the fact that I haven't been playing on my Xbox much lately, and I haven't played an FPS in some time either. Whatever the reason, I almost gave up on it after my first play session. Thankfully though, I did give it another go, and for some reason this second go just clicked and I discovered a great game underneath. In fact, it's one of the best games I've played in a while. Perhaps an unfair comparison though, because the last game I played was Homefront and that was dire. We start off fairly simply. After the events of the first game, a virus has broken out called the Manhattan virus, and it causes people to suffer a complete cellular breakdown. With the virus running rampant and the aliens, called the Ceph, invading all over the place, the people of Earth are all terrified. New York has been placed under martial law and is policed by a private military organisation called Cell, because that always works out well in the end. We play as Alcatraz, a US Marine, who with his unit has been sent to extract a doctor who might be able to help with the virus. Unsurprisingly, you're attacked by the Ceph, and you get rescued at the last minute by Prophet, who has just reappeared from the first game. He gives you his shiny nanosuit 2.0, and then kills himself so the suit will bond with you properly. You have to fight your way through Cell, who wants to take the suit away from you, and the Ceph invasion force to try and halt the invasion, as well as cure the virus that is taking over the world.
Alcatraz, the elevators and security gates are all offline. You'll need to reboot the system from the main desk.
You have numerous tools to aid you in fighting Cell and the Ceph. You have the usual array of shotguns, automatic rifles, SMGs, pistols and sniper rifles, as well as some fun future guns that shoot balls of electricity or microwave rays. The real star of the show, however, is your nanosuit. With the nanosuit, you're able to sprint at high speeds, jump superhumanly high, strengthen your armour to absorb damage, use heat vision, and cloak to go practically invisible. You also have a visor that allows you to scan the battlefield for enemies as well as ammo drops, weapons, and what are referred to as tactical options. These tactical options give you tips on how you can approach an area by showing you flanking routes, ambush spots, or good stealthing routes. Thankfully, the tactical options are more like suggestions than the only way to tackle an area. If you really wanted to, you could charge headfirst into every fight guns blazing and see what's left standing amongst the piles of smoking bodies. On the other hand, you can creep around with your cloak and silence weapons and take the enemy troops out one by one. Both the suit and the weapons are easily upgradable. You can have up to 4 of the 12 available perks active at any one time, and they range from things like reduced noise generation while stealth, increased bullet deflection, energy drain reduction while using various powers, and highlighting the enemy's pathing routes. Each weapon has several attachment options for you to use, and unlike most games, you don't just have to use the ones on the weapon you pick up off the floor. Once you've found an attachment once, you can then equip and unequip it whenever you want to, and this leads to all sorts of different tactical options. So you can run around with an underbarrel shotgun on your machine gun while in a tight corridor, and then when you come to a room full of enemies, then you can switch to your grenade launcher and clear them out in a single blast.
Switching to core function mode. Life support priority. Warning. EMP shutdown. All systems impaired. Switching to core function mode. Life support priority. Warning. Protocols engaging. Rerouting systems.
One of my major bugbears about many FPS games are the controls. Generally, I find most console FPS games have sluggish and loose controls. However, thankfully, Crysis 2 is not one of these. The controls are tight and responsive, with really good sensitivity options. There is a slight delay when you aim down the sight, sadly, but it's only a really minor annoyance and it doesn't affect gameplay very much at all. The control layout is a little different to the usual FPS layout, however it takes no time at all to get used to it. The only downside for Xbox players is some powers are assigned to the wobbly D-pad. I assume this is less of a problem on the PS3 and a total non-issue for PC gamers, and once the new Xbox controller is out everywhere, this will hopefully disappear completely. The interface is nice and clean. Apart from a small energy and ammo display in one corner and a small but detailed minimap in the other, the screen is completely empty, barring the occasional communicator and objective pop-ups of course. The enemy AI is pretty decent. They don't just stand around doing nothing or just blindly chase you around corners. They are able to discover you while you're cloaked if you stand in bright lights or make too much noise, but at the same time they won't just run right at you while you stealth and push you straight out of it like in some games. The set pieces are fairly well put together. There aren't really any boss fights as such. There are a few battles with helicopters while you're trapped in a building, and a couple of fights against giant mechs. They're fairly simple fights, but they do provide a nice change of pace when they appear. There are a couple of overused set pieces. The people at Crytek seem to enjoy the incapacitated looking up at the fight happening around you scenes, and the scrabbling on the floor while sliding down a ledge. It's hardly a big issue, it just gets a little bit boring by the third time you have to do it. There aren't really a lot of scripted moments in Crysis 2, which is a nice change. I don't mind the occasional bit of scripted gameplay when it's done well, but it's often overused or put together really badly. The few times it's used here, they aren't that great. There are a couple of times when I would hit an invisible wall and wonder what's happening, and then a scripted event would happen a few feet away a few seconds later. I'm also a little unsure of what to make of the ending of Crysis 2. I won't spoil the actual end, but the last fight you have is against a large-ish swarm of the same enemies you've been fighting for the rest of the game, before you enter an alien structure and trigger the final cutscene, which only really sets the game up for Crysis 3. This isn't too surprising really, as the whole game does have a feeling of being the middle child. Not a lot really happens story-wise, and there's definitely no closure at the end.
Good. Now let's see what the suit will do. Excellent. Recognition, communication, exchange. The protocols are compatible. More resistance than I expected. You'd better. Would you excuse me, please?
Like most modern FPS games, Crysis 2 also has a multiplayer component. I had a short go at this and it was good fun. The maps I played on were fairly small, which led to frantic gun battles, and you have the usual modes of free-for-all, team deathmatch and capture the flag, as well as some fairly familiar hold the iron for points and control the objects type of game modes. There are also perk, killstreak and ranking systems which will sound fairly familiar. You get to choose from 3 perks which will either boost your current abilities or give you extra ones. You get to choose from 3 kill streaks which will give you extra bonuses when you kill successive people, and you go up in rank the more people you kill. These are fairly tried and tested formulas, so I've got nothing particularly bad to say about them, we've just seen them all before. What is different though is you get to keep your armour and cloak abilities, and I assume the heat vision from the main game, and you can use these whenever you like, which leads to some very interesting fights. You could get the jump on a guy only for him to go invisible and run away, or alternatively someone could throw a grenade right at your feet and you could live to tell the tale by turning on your armour ability. I can see some problems with this because it can lead to a camping style of gameplay, but it might not be all that bad, because the amount of fun you get to have from using these extra abilities that aren't in other games far outweighs that. While I was playing the multiplayer, I was using my headphones, which really highlighted the sound quality. While playing, I'd keep turning around as I could hear someone running behind me, and when I looked there was no one there and it was just the sound of my own footsteps. Not being able to sound whore isn't the worst thing in the world, but it is a minor annoyance, and it's just something so simple to get so wrong. This kind of problem kind of sums up Crysis 2 all over though. It is a great game that's really good fun to play, but a few minor issues just let it down here and there. They don't ruin the game by any means, but they do make it fall just short of amazing. Still, after the disappointing memories I was left with after the first Crysis, Crysis 3 now has quite a reputation to live up to.